Hi everybody, it's Linda. I'm back to show you my latest journal. It is an altered vintage sewing book journal, and I had such a good time making it, and I'm really excited to share it with you. It's made from a 1950s book called Sewing Made Easy, and I decorated the cover with a topper that I made. It has some charms and some little vintage sewing elements, little fabric pieces, vintage buttons, a yo-yo. I added some book corners to the book, a vintage closure of this beautiful trim, a doily on the back, and it is filled with lots of beautiful vintage fabrics and ephemera pieces and just lots of vintage sweetness. So let me get myself in focus here in the middle of the screen and we'll take a look. I did a couple of process videos during the making of this, and I was going to make more, and I really wanted to focus on the making of the ephemera, and before I knew it, this was a gator mouth, and I really didn't need to create any of the specific ephemera pieces that I was going to make on film. So anyway, thank you for taking time today to take a quick peek at this. Let's get inside. Okay. So there's a little fabric pocket here. It's a Kathy Holden button fabric. And in here is an invisible envelope. No, actually there will be an envelope in here with a letter from me, and I just forgot to put it in there. So we'll just pretend it's there. And then this cute little vintage image that I used for kind of a little book plate there. I love her. And let's get, is that right? Yeah, well, we'll say it is. Okay, so there's a little collage here. The first several pages of the book I left completely untouched. And there are several pages throughout the book that are untouched, so you can journal on them, you can cover them, you can decorate them, you could do whatever you would like. Here is a little collage, and in the top is a Project Life card that I covered with some fun vintage fabric and sewed a little topper there. Little collage, and also a little piece of that vintage fabric here. The illustrations in this book are just wonderful, and I had to remove a lot of the pages, so I used some of the images from the pages I removed to do some further embellishment and in some of the ephemera pieces. And I will also include, to whoever makes this journal their own, I'm going to include some of those removed pages as well, so that you can use them for decorating or whatever you'd like to do. They're beautiful. Okay, so there's this fun pocket, and the name of this scrapbook paper is Material Girl. I thought that was really fun, so I left that in there. And in this pocket is a little vintage sewing image, and I made that into a journal card by covering the back with some vintage ledger and sewing a little fabric tab. And this is an image from one of the removed pages. This is a fabric flip, a great vintage fabric, and I put some writing paper behind it there, coffee dyed writing paper. There's a little collage here, and then kind of a coordinating vintage postcard journal card. This is digital from TsunamiRose that I will credit in the description box. This is a fabric or a paper tuck spot there, so you can put journaling paper or whatever you would like there. It's a vintage image. This is just an ATC size painty paper. I thought just matched beautifully with the colors. This is some vintage sewing notions, some snaps, and I thought again the colors were wonderful there. Little collage. Here's a little notebook with a fabric topper, and then in the top here is another Project Life card with some fun coordinating vintage fabric. I had so much fun making this journal. It really, really was. Double page pocket here with just some really fun collage pieces, fabric included. And in the pockets, in each pocket is a sewing themed journal card and some painty paper. My sister made these painty papers, and not to match this journal, although you would think that they were created for the journal when you see just the way the colors are so perfect. Oh, and this one is about needles. I believe these were from free digital from the Graphics Fairy. And I will credit everything in the description box. Okay, here's a fun collage and another one of those postcard journal cards with the fun fabric topper. Here is a fabric tuck made with a fun little, not a fabric tuck, I'm sorry, a paper tuck with a fun image and this vintage image of these shoes. My mom used to wear saddle shoes, and I wore them also. We went through a phase again, it was around 1970-ish, early 70s, where we wore these saddle shoes again in school. Late 60s, early 70s, something like that. So I just love this. This is an image, or this is a fabric from an old pillowcase. And I used another little piece of it to line this journal, to tab this journal card, which is some fun sewing themed scrapbook paper. I would have loved to have this pillowcase when I was a little girl. This totally looks like something that I would have had. It's a little image collage here. This image is from Red Lead Paperworks from one of their rubber stamps. Here's some fun vintage dotted Swiss, and I made that into a pocket, and in the pocket are some vintage buttons and an alteration card. Over here is an image from one of the removed pages, and I used the coordinating fabric to top this journal card here. Cut, pin, sew, repeat. And the way I sew, it should say cut, pin, sew, rip, sew again, repeat. I have done some sewing in my life. I did make some clothes for a little while, and I think I always ripped as much as I sewed. I never got great at it. My sister, on the other hand, is great at sewing. She made a lot of her own pants and shorts and skirts and everything through the years, and I just was never that good at it. I prefer to rip my fabric and sew it on paper. So I love this houndstooth little feature here. So I found some patterns that had houndstooth in them, and I had this gift wrap and the definition of houndstooth, and made this little spread here I thought was really fun. And then this is kind of summer, showing her with her tennis racket, so I thought the red, white, and blue would be kind of a fun touch for this page. And this is some actual packaging from some vintage rickrack. Look at how great these images are. I love this book. It was so much fun to work in. Here is another little nod to summer with this lady in her swimming suit. And so I thought these fabrics and this trim was just summer and happy. Summery and happy. Here's a little fun journal card in the top of this pocket with the coordinating fabric. Isn't that awesome? I love that. And here's another fabric flip across from this multi-pocketed page here. Here's some tea. I always like to include a tea bag in all of my journals. This organic rose tea, I thought it looked really pretty in this page. And this is another part of the TsunamiRose digital. And what I did for this journal was I actually took photos of my vintage patterns and then I printed out my photos in the sizes that I wanted, and it worked really nicely. I'm in need of a new printer, so my scanner doesn't work well, so that was a nice alternative to be able to use the pictures from my patterns. This is a fun purple fabric here, and in this pocket is a coordinating journal card. Loved using my vintage buttons. Another 2-page spread. This one is kind of a nod to buttons. As you can see, the Kathy Holden button fabric is peeking through from a couple pages back, and I used that fabric as a little tab on each of these journal cards. And I actually sewed these pockets with buttons. That's what's attaching. You can see when you look at the back page that they're sewn through there. That was really fun to do. Okay, let me make sure I'm staying in frame here. Another fabric flip with a Kathy Holden button fabric. And this fun image from a button card. And then in the top here is that button print that we've been seeing peeking over the top on this Project Life card. This was so fun. I'm gonna kind of miss it. Okay, so here's some happy summery blue in this double pocket spread, and on this side is a photocopy of another one of my patterns with some happy blue daisy summery fabric at the top, and a vintage flash card that says cut, and a little faux button card that says Grandma's Button Box for blouses and breeches. Love that. Okay, look at these ladies with their hats and their little half-trimmed veils. So cute. This is kind of a two-way fabric flip. There's a top and there's a bottom. And then this top actually tucks into this trim that's between them. So the top part is actually pretty hidden. And then in the side, there's 2 side pockets here. And each of the side pockets has one of these tags with a lady on it. That fun? Okay. More pages from the original book that are just scrumptious. Love this. I made this teeny tiny little fabric flip for just a little bit of a little secret journal spot. And it was mostly because I just love this fabric and wanted to use a little more of it. I used it as a topper for this journal card. These ladies are showing off their tailored suits, coats, and jackets. This is a double tuck that looks like a vintage sewing needle book. And tucked in this side is kind of just some pattern ladies. And on this side is another one of those vintage sewing instruction from the Graphics Fairy Digital. And then we're to the back of the book. The very last page. I didn't glue this on. You can use it as a card. If you would gift this journal to someone, you could use it and write a note on the back. It was just so sweet. I wanted to leave it like it was, and it says, "This little gift I made for you, and in between the stitches, wished and wished and wished and wished you happiness and riches." And the little charm says, "Handmade with love." And then in the very back pocket, I embossed a note card with some vintage buttons and included the envelope so that you could use it as a note card if you wanted, or you could also use it just for a lot of journaling. And it tucks into this back pocket. And that is it. That is my vintage altered sewing journal. And if you're seeing the flip through, that means I have added it to my Etsy shop, Joyful Makes and Finds on Etsy. So thank you for taking a few minutes to take a peek at this journal. If you're interested, you can take a peek at it a little further in my Etsy shop. And I've got more journals in the works, and I will be seeing you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.